Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Joel, you and I were just doing like a warm-up in the green room, getting ourselves excited. I mean, normally we do these shows, and by the end, we're feeling great. We're starting this one at like a 10.
Yeah.
Can you get to 11 by the time you're done?
Well, we're going to give it our best shot.
We're going to do our best. I wish I could tell people what it was about, but I can't. But let's just leave it that. If you were to hear this, you'd be feeling like a 10 too. But anyway, we have a good topic today. This actually came about once again from your Facebook page because you took it down.
I did. It's my annual pre-election sabbatical.
Is there a reason why you do it around the election? Is that just because of the time of year, or
time of year, the people, the bizarreness of the people? I can't post anything without somebody turning it into a political post.
Yes.
You know, I hope everybody has a fantastic day. Not when Biden's president. It's like, oh God. Oh Lord, just cut that off. So instead of fighting it, I'll get on the other side of it and console the losing side when we're done and realize it's going to be fine no matter what.
Yeah.
I promise. Yeah.
Especially in light of a conversation that we can't talk about.
Yeah.
But well, it's a great idea, first of all, to have a scheduled break like that. I mean, obviously you're doing it in part to maintain mental sanity during the election cycle. But it's also a good practice to do generally. In fact, I was kind of noticing today, I worked through the day. I was doing stuff that I enjoyed. Don't get me wrong. This wasn't drudgery or anything like that. I was doing stuff that was kind of fun. I was actually working on a novel that I've been putting together, putting on finishing touches and so forth. But even so, I didn't really take much of a break during the day. And I thought to myself, that's probably not so healthy. I kind of need to get more time in there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. Particularly for me with social media. I've generally, for the most part, just use it for business, motivational stuff, life coaching stuff. I wouldn't be on social media if I didn't have that. I don't like it. I don't like what it represents in a lot of ways. But it can be a good tool. But when I find anything in my orbit that causes me to have moments of, being angry or just saying, getting frustrated, why would I voluntarily be involved with something that's frustrating to me? So I can just step away from it. And, I've often said one of these times I just might not come back. I just might be done. And I deactivated it, and I have unlimited amount of time I can reactivate it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a button that I can press to delete it. And, that may come. I don't know. It might be this time. It's just not that, nothing's going to control me. Nothing's going to influence me in a negative way. And so I'll make that decision when it's necessary. But right now it's just deactivated, and day or two after the election and all the drama and there's going to be a lot of drama no matter who wins. And after that, I'll just come on in and just do my normal stuff, angering the other side, probably.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it plays out anything like it did 4 years ago, it may be more than a day or two afterward. You may
it might be. I might not be on for a month or so afterward.
Yeah, it could be.
But regardless, more than anything, it's just not even I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I notice with me, business wise, I have to have my phone. I have to. My calendar's on my phone. My text messaging is my main way of communicating with clients, setting up that. So I am really sort of enmeshed with the phone, which offers so many things. While it's an incredible business tool, I also miss the days of you leave me a message on my answering machine and I'll get back to you when I'm ready.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, you can do it. It's not like you can't do that. You choose to.
And I may do that again. It's just getting more and more. I like that more simple things in life kind of thing. I'm getting rid of a lot of the stuff in my house to get more of a minimalist type thing. I'm eventually looking for a place to be moving soon. And, so all of that, it isn't negative. It's just, I like to simplify. Life has become complicated for a lot of ways, and removing some of the stuff that just doesn't necessarily always serve me. is just I reevaluate every aspect of my life frequently, and that social media is a neutral usually, and if it dips into the negative, and then I want to get rid of it.
I like the fact that you're taking advantage of the fact that with all these technologies, we do have the ability to turn them off. I mean,
Yes,
I have a number of things. I imagine you do kind of similar things, but for instance, with my phone, I have it set up so that the only calls I can get through are people I know, and it's a small list of people that I even want to let through.
right.
So
Yeah.
what that means I don't actually get a lot of phone calls. I get
Oh,
tries to go through and ends up in voicemail, but I never get any phone
yeah,
calls.
I never, I don't answer any phone call that I don't know.
Hmm.
My phone's on silent all the time.
All the time, 100%.
Yeah,
Okay,
100. Now I do have Justin and my friend.
sure.
Her stuff is that rings through. There's a setting you can do that they will always ring,
Hmm.
so they're there. But there's nothing that I have to deal with right now.
Hmm.
My voice message when somebody does reach me, one of my statements is this: I am not an emergency resource. If you are in an emergency, you need to call 911.
111, yeah.
And it may be a few days before I get back to you. I've just because my problem is time and getting just back to back to back sessions. It's hard to set new appointments and set new people. So
Hmm.
I'm actually working with my friend as well. She's going to be handling some of my scheduling and stuff that
Nice.
I've always been reluctant to hand off. I just need to hand it off.
Good for you, though. Good
Yeah.
for you, because that's also part of the mental health piece. I mean, that's really what
Yes.
we're talking about here is personal mental health,
Yes.
emotional well-being, that sort of thing. Uh, and it's on a topic that we have a lot of direct control over. There are a lot of things in life that we either don't have direct control over or we have minimal direct control over. This is not one of them.
Right.
This is
Completely. And
one where
that
we have like almost 100% control.
Well, and that, I've always been really reluctant to give up the illusion of control. That's one of my
Yeah.
things that I continue to work on. I understand that a lot of things I believe I control, I don't, but like sticking to me managing my schedule and doing intake calls and all these things, I've always wanted to handle that. I also do like to screen my clients. I'm very picky on who I'll accept,
Mm,
I'm not, uh, not going to just take anybody or whatever because I'm not in a position I have to do that anymore.
sure.
But I don't normally trust people to handle that kind of thing. But when you build a deep friendship and bond with somebody that is also very organized, she is the opposite of me as far as organization and
Yeah, you've
detail.
mentioned her before, which is
Yeah,
fabulous to have a
which is
personal friend in your
fantastic. I
life.
mean, it's
Oh yeah.
fantastic. So she handles a lot of stuff already, but I'm gonna start handling some of this other stuff. And what I like about dealing with her is it's just I don't have to over explain. I just
Mm,
you do it. Here it is.
right.
And if there's a question, she'll message me, but I never get questions. It's just handled. I had a situation where my client needed over the weekend needed a plumber or whatever, and I said I just can't deal with this right now. I never heard from her. She said I paid him $180 and I sent her the reimbursement. That was just completely handled.
I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and it's stuff like that is valuable to me, and I've always been reluctant to do that. And a lot of that is that control issue,
Mm.
and a lot of it has been me not really trusting somebody to handle. This is my livelihood, so I have to have somebody that's going to be able to
Yeah.
handle it. Yeah,
Well, I mean that's reasonable, I think. I mean, yeah, we could kind of say, well, we're kind of control freakish a little bit, but there's some things you really do need to have control over. You have to name. I mean, like with the gardening service business, one of the very few things I still do is the payroll.
yes,
I really don't want to hand the payroll off to somebody else just yet. Maybe at some point I do, but it would have to be somebody I really trust because that's a very high level of fiduciary responsibility. I want to make sure that it gets done right. I
I,
want to make sure that my business is protected. I mean, you kind of have to take care of stuff like that.
years ago, I had a client. Quick story. Years ago, I had a client that I actually worked with his wife. He had a machine shop, gigantic machine shop up in up north somewhere. I don't remember
Mhm.
exactly where, but big company and moderate for a personally owned company.
Mhm.
And I just happened to be talking with him one day, and he goes, "I don't know where our money's going." And
Mm.
my accountant has looked at it and said we should have a lot more money. We don't know where it's going, and so he just mentioned that. So at some point, I was up there and I visited, and I said, "Did you ever figure out what was going on in your money?" And he said, No, he said, nobody, I've had a forensic accountant look at it. Nobody. I said, well, let's look at it. And
Mhm.
so I took everybody. I said, it has to be through the payroll. The only way it could exit is through the payroll.
Sure.
And so we're looking at everything, and we put everybody's timesheet on the table. There's like 40 people,
Hmm.
and everything there's coding at the bottom of the timesheet. There's coding, just numbers, and I don't even know what the numbers meant when I was looking at it. So everybody had like 4 or 5 numbers, and the last number was 1.5, except one person who had 5.0,
Ooh.
and nobody saw that. Everything else looked the same. So I said, what's that difference? How come everybody has the first numbers are different? Because I said,
I want to hazard a guess of what I think it is.
throw it.
I think it's overtime.
You're right. Absolutely. So, so I said, why don't we pull this employee's records and stuff? And so turns out that coding was the overtime rate, as you just picked. And she was doing 10 hours of overtime a week at 5 times her rate.
Wow.
So she's a $30 an hour employee getting $150 for, that's, that's a lot of money.
That'll suck the money up pretty quick.
Yeah, and so the idea that was coming through, and he's like, I just can't believe that you found that. And I said, well, it had to be they were busy looking at the accounts where the checks are going, and payroll is the easiest thing to rip people off. So your instincts are correct, and payroll is there's so much fees and things and little numbers, and to balance that is really, you got to be very careful who you're trusting doing payroll, because that is the way to steal from you almost every time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I actually use software. I use QuickBooks software to
Right.
run the payroll because I know that they have every interest in making sure that it comes out accurate from their end. So all I have
Yes.
to do is make sure is that the input is good, which
Absolutely.
is what you were talking about, the input. That's what that was.
Yeah, the inputs, absolutely. So, anyway, the within the process of that, it's just learning to trust, learning how to. So, deactivating Facebook. I'm still on Instagram. I like Instagram a little better. There's not any drama on Instagram. It's just, at least it's a different level. People don't comment the way on Instagram they do on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's just I still do my motivational posts on Instagram, but just sit back and very seldom somebody will comment. If they do, it's never negative. It's just, I don't know. They're the same owned by the same company. I just don't understand why one platform is so, and the other one is like pretty supportive.
It's because of what their original intentions were. I mean, Facebook is all about the likes and the comments and the shares.
Right.
Instagram is more about, they don't even care much about the likes. It's more about the shares than anything else.
Yeah, sharing, looking at content.
Yeah.
And so I just find it a better platform, at least for my thing. So,
Sure.
But no matter what it is, the toxic people need to be removed from my life. If there's somebody that is toxic, now, as we were talking before the show, I can have toxic clients, but that's sort of my job. So that doesn't affect me. I don't get affected by that in the same way.
I got a question about that though, because this is something throws back to when I was married, my ex-wife, former psychotherapist, and I asked her about this. I'm curious to know what your take is. Typically, particularly if you work in a company where they're providing therapeutic services, they do what they often call supervision. One therapist basically reporting to another therapist and basically providing therapy services to each other, because therapists can just as easily absorb the crap that they're hearing from the clients as anybody else. So you have to have a way to kind of release that. I'm curious, how do you, because I don't think you have anybody like that you're doing that with. So how do you release all that stuff?
Well, I realized a long time ago that if I'm going to do this, and it will be by myself, because that's how I prefer, I'm not with a group anymore.
Sure.
I definitely have to figure out not to, it's transference and countertransference is the term you're talking about, where you hear somebody's problems, you transfer them yourselves, or you get them. So I work very hard on, every day intentionally understanding I need to be there for my client. And there's some things that sometimes will frustrate me that they're saying, and I have to breathe through them and remember what my role is. It's, it is a hard thing to do when you could be reactive to it, become reactive to these things. I've over time, I feel I've really done a great job in just being able to take a deep breath and realize this is my job. I really go, this is the part that I just love about it. Once a session is done and I move on to the next session, and then when the day is done, my day does not haunt me. I don't, it's there. And the, I go home with the idea that I have to have home as a refuge. I deal with so much of that. It could easily, it could easily affect me. But there's also, on a good day too, I have some really positive stuff from people. I have a lot of breakthroughs from people. So I try to absorb that positivity, and I try to just, walk away from the other, because it doesn't really affect me. I live life on a really simple term of, sort of the concept of the things that are in my control. I will spend all my energy and effort trying to control those. Things that are out of my control, I need to, all the energy and effort me trying to do to I have no bearing on that.
Well, I would think also, I mean, you're kind of a gym rat. So, I mean, that would be a place I would think you go to also kind of like excrete this stuff just to kind of sweep it off.
Yeah. Well, I literally have this image that, and this was taught to me by a therapist years ago that was also sort of like me in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so what you do when you leave work, whatever there, you move on from it. Save it though, be able to pull it up at the gym and then take it out on that at the gym.
Take it out on the metal.
Yeah, you take it out on the metal, and it, in my workouts, you've never enjoyed one with me, but they're intense. I work out really hard.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, and I mean, it's I feel great when I'm done. It feels like all the burdens are off, and it's an amazing thing. I have said before, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but my accountant had told me 2 years ago. He said that, do you realize you working out every morning costs you $100,000 a year?
Yeah, he's definitely missing part of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I said, no. Me working out every morning allows me to make a lot of money every year. It's a whole different thing. I can't do what I do without that working out. If I were to add 2 more, because he's taking into account to the gym, working out, then back home to change. It's basically takes about 4 hours of my morning, that I do when you count all that, 3.5, 4 hours, and it's but I don't look at it that way. I'm not able to do my job if I don't do this. I wouldn't be good at my job without that. Wow. I wouldn't be good at this at 7:00 at night on a Monday night unless I did that. It changes everything for me every day.
I think it's really interesting that he said that, because it doesn't really reflect anything on you so much as it reflects on him. It shows he's basically advocating workaholism.
Well, he's an accountant. His job is to say, here's how you need to make more money.
At any expense.
But that's his mind. And there's a lot of people that are into that. And it's like, and earlier in my career, I've been really listening to that more than I would listen to it now. Yeah. Now it doesn't have any bearing on it, but but it is my sanity. It's my antidepressant. It's my it's where my social life. I have I don't have by choice. I don't have a very active social life. I hang out with the people I want to hang out with. We go do amazing fun things. But I could go anywhere and do anything. I've turned down invitations all the time for that. I just don't. I really only want to be around the people I want to be around. My gym is where a lot of my community is. Most of my friends are from the gym or from other doctors in town. So absolutely, this is it's just a self-care thing. So I spend a lot of time on self-care, my diet, my meditations, my breathing. All those things are necessary for me to have the life that I have, and that's sort of the ingredient that I found. The ingredients that are able to, to be my age and still be able to perform like I perform, not just at the gym, but at work as well.
And that self-care is the root of what I was actually addressing a moment ago about that accountant. I don't think the accountant, in his calculation about how to make more money, takes self-care into account
at all. No. That's not
so it kind of raises the very obvious point that if you're not going to take the time to take care of yourself, then isn't it true you might make more money in the short term, but in the long term, you're going to burn yourself out and make less money?
Oh yeah, definitely. And you not only that, you lose for me, I can speak for me. I I don't work the same way on a day that I can go. It isn't like if I miss a workout, things fall apart. You know that
Sure.
I
Yeah.
can life happens. But if I go a couple weeks, when I had my surgery, abdominal surgery a few years ago, and I couldn't work out originally for 4 weeks. The doctor said nothing for 4 weeks, and finally, after me bugging him, he just said, after 2 weeks, go very lightly. Just go very
Go very
lightly. You're going to
lightly.
do it
Yeah.
anyway. And I did that because I started to notice depression kicking in,
Yeah.
anxiety kicking in. I was becoming distracted at work. In fact, that what made me actually really realize that a client told me something they had told me before, and I forgot. And I have an incredible memory. I have,
Mm.
so that it was a sign to me that I could quickly see my mental acuity is being affected by my lack of exercise. And
Yeah.
walking around the block or walking 10 miles a day won't is not the same thing as me going and deadlifting 500 pounds and throwing huge weight around.
Hmm. Yeah. And, well, just from the way you tell that story, it makes it pretty evident, pretty obvious that it is not just an important part of your life, it is essential.
It's essential. It is when people talk, I've been in recovery. I'm sure our audience knows this by now, from a gambling addiction for 29 years.
Yeah, I would think at one point you were recovered, but we'll go on another topic
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that
yeah.
another time.
I'm stuck in old verbiage. I'm a former gambling addict. That'll really piss everybody off.
Oh,
But
okay.
but regardless of all that, the idea that I'll hear people say, "Well, this is what did it. My 12-step meetings did it, or
Mm,
my therapy did it, or medication did it." The gym did it for me.
mm,
It's the cornerstone. I did other things, but the gym was the cornerstone. It's what allowed it to happen. And there was something about early when I started getting back into working out after going to jail and getting out. And, I was very depressed and didn't really have much of a future to look forward to as a convicted felon, I thought. And somebody taught me into going to the gym with him. And I was very weak, hadn't worked out in a while. And then when I started getting going, my thing called muscle memory, you
mm.
gain your strength back really quick. And I'll never forget this. Probably about 3 weeks into me lifting, I tried a 315-pound deadlift, and I got it for 2 times. And I said, if I can do that, I can do anything.
Sure.
And then I was that foot on the gas at that point. It changed. It changed in an instant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can see why. I mean, it kind of makes sense, really, because you go through what you went and what you did, and you come out the other side with the experience you had on the other side. Why would you want to go back? First of all,
Exactly.
and second of all, you found what worked. Why would you want to change it? I mean, it's producing exactly the result you want.
Absolutely. So yeah. So the self-care, the adding the things that are helpful, removing the things that are harmful, or sometimes even neutral. I
Mm,
like to, you know, uh, I don't like the amount of time that I could spend on my phone if I allowed myself to do it.
mm,
I don't spend that much time on my phone on purpose, but I can get into deep dive. I'm not really a scroller as much as I'm a researcher, and anything can pop into my brain and I can go on a deep dive about anything. And while that sounds fantastic, sometimes it's so bizarre
yeah.
and really irrelevant sometimes too. For that ADHD brain says, well, I wonder who invented paper clips, I don't
But by
know.
the way, I forgot to mention that, but a couple of days ago, we had a guest on who had kind of a similar experience to you in that she also went through some pretty serious traumas, self-induced traumas. She didn't go to jail, but she went through some pretty severe addictions and ended up overcoming the addictions by working out in the gym. And she became a gym rat, very similar to you. She doesn't push the heavy amount of iron that you do, but yeah, and she's done that for years. So I thought, geez, it would have been great if Joel had been on that show.
Oh, I love, yeah. It reprograms the brain. Exercise increases neuroplasticity.
Mm,
You've heard me say before, if I have a major decision to make in life, it is only made after an intense workout.
mm.
Will never pre-workout. Afterward, I need a clear head.
Yeah, and it gives you that clear head, which is
Sure,
fabulous.
absolutely.
So under the larger umbrella of self-care and emotional well-being, which is basically what we're talking about here, why you need to take a break, why it's important to take those sabbaticals and set up basically to set up boundaries in your life. This is a lot of this has to do with boundaries, whether they be technological boundaries to keep the bad guys out and keep your social circle in, but taking all these steps to develop and maintain that emotional well-being, it isn't just essential to a healthy life, it's essential to a growing life, to the kind of life that you want to live.
Completely. And for me, and anything I ever say is based on my experience, when, I'm not giving anybody advice, but I always say like works for me, is for me, I my struggle with depression and anxiety and the, childhood trauma, as well as, my addiction trauma and all the other stuff is, it's there, it's real. It's not a fake thing. And I have to be proactive. I over the years I took the medication that they prescribed. It did absolutely nothing. It was neither good nor bad. Had no effect on anything. So
Right.
I pretty much dismissed that pretty on, and it didn't seem. I did talk therapy, and everything was like, well, tell me about this way back then. It just was so like, what's that relevant with today? And I never felt better afterward. I said, I need to find a way to talk to somebody and feel better than walking when I don't want to feel worse when I walk in there. And that's, eventually that's what I became, is the life coach, with that concept of, if we got to deal with historical stuff, we certainly will. But my goal is to not, when you leave my office, I want your vibration to match my vibration, my energy. And that's once you do that, we did something that was effective.
Yeah, well, that's similar to the goal here on the program. I mean, the program is subtitled Your Daily Dose of Happy because we want everybody, you, me, all my other co-hosts, the guests, the listeners, to always be in a better space by the time we're done with the show.
Absolutely.
So it's exactly the same goal.
Yes.
Which, by the way, one of the reasons I love it.
Well, it is. It's, you and I, when we started doing this, 10 years ago, whatever that was. And
12 years ago.
12 years ago. Yeah. And, in the beginning, it was you and I just chatting with each other. We always felt better. I had left my job at my previous employer. I was building my life coaching practice. And I didn't have I was busy, but not like today. And so this was really helpful and inspirational to me to, keep going, applying the law of attraction even more and more deeply. And it was a great time. And as I said, it was basically me and you in the beginning.
And you're right. I mean, when we were doing it weekly together, that was about 10 years ago. I was thinking to the first meeting we had, which was 12 years ago, when you were one of the first guests on the program. But,
yes.
Right. We started doing it regularly about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember when we started connecting in to do this. Well, first of all, we didn't have the technology today, so we had to we had to figure it out as we went along. I had to do some creative IT stuff in order to make it happen. But I remember that's where I started to get that feeling that made me want to go beyond law of attraction.
Yes.
I mean, we covered law of attraction in the first 400 episodes, probably in the first 100. We had it pretty well covered.
Oh, yeah.
But it became evident to me really early on, I want to keep doing this. I want to do this the rest of my life because it's so much fun to do it. We get so much of an energy exchange when we do it. So the reason I bring that up is this is another form of emotional well-being. Just doing this.
Yes.
This is I mean, in kind of in a sort of way, it's kind of similar to what you do when you go to the gym. You go to the gym because that's where you get your best energy. That's where you clear your head. That's where you make your best decisions and so forth. And it's not quite the same thing for me, but this podcast kind of serves a lot of the same kind of purposes for me. Not completely, but to a large extent.
Well, and one of the things that is most important for anybody, and we need a purpose. We need a reason. We need to, when you get up and you have a reason to get up, no matter what the reason is, it could be, just opening the Starbucks, or whatever, but there's a reason to get up. Life is meant to have a purpose and point to it. You're supposed to be doing something. And if you find something you love and you can do it, that's even more rewarding. The concept that, again, my perspective is, the brain is very resilient. It learns. It can learn at whatever age. I mean, 100-year-old people can still learn to do things. So
Mhm.
the brain is intended, but it needs to be taxed. It needs to be challenged. The body's the same way. Your muscle density, your muscle mass can grow at any age, but you've got to challenge the muscle mass. You got to challenge the
Mhm.
brain. So when you have something, one of the things that I talk to people about who are lost their job, their life sucks, and everything's going terribly in their mind. We need something to get up tomorrow to do. There needs to be something. If you're not going to go to the gym, let's find something. But a point, a reason, then you build from that, and then that's how that momentum goes. So that incremental sort of atomic habits mindset of let's go do that little bit next, and keep going.
It's not the only way to accomplish what you're talking about, but one of my favorite topics is the topic of finding your passion,
Yes.
because that's really one of the best ways to do
Yes.
exactly what you're describing.
Yes.
To have a reason, not just to get up, but to go do things and pursue that passion in whatever way that you want to pursue it, because that does keep you going. It keeps you alive. It keeps you growing. It keeps you building. It gives you confidence. It gives you connection to other people. It gives, I mean, it's almost hard to find things that it doesn't give you.
Well,
Passion is really amazing.
passion, it's an alarm clock. It's a
Yeah.
nature's alarm clock. When you get up and you want to get up, you want to go face the day, you want to go do these things. That is so valuable. That is, having a reason to get up and perform, and wanting to. I have a belief system. We talked about this when we're talking about ikigai, the Japanese concepts of
Mhm.
finding your passion, living it, making a
Right.
living at it. The reason they live so long in Japan, particularly that one Okinawa, I think is where that.
Okinawa, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, you don't retire. You just go. You just keep going. There's no
Mhm.
retirement. And like, yeah, you've been here for 70 years. It's time to pack it up. No, you just keep going.
Yep.
And the need to get up and go. The when people, football coaches that have retired, after years and years and years of coaching successfully, when they retire, there's been a few of them that died within a month after retiring. Bear
Oh, yeah.
Bryant's an example.
Yeah.
And he,
Joe
Joe
Paterno.
Paterno, yeah. And those are people that were iconic in the game, and they every
Mhm.
day they were out there doing what they needed to do. They retire, and the body's like, okay,
I'm
okay,
done.
well, mission done. And
Yeah.
so I'm very much in favor of creating a passion, finding something to do, and like you're saying, sometimes the search of a passion is just that, finding out what that is. It can be part of the goal.
I'm also reminded that a friend of mine, former co-host here on the show, passed away over the weekend. His name was Mike
Oh,
McGowan. And I hadn't talked with Mike in a while, but I learned from his wife that he had passed over the weekend. And I, I'm just reminded of a few things about him, not the least of which is he had a passion for life. He had a passion for his own self-development, particularly in the last years of his life, the last 10 years or so. He got into Reiki. He got into helping other people with energy work of various kinds, and the passion just kept him going, kept him going, kept him going. So it kind of raises the question in your mind, well, then why did he pass? And the answer is going to be different for every person, I think. But for me, the answer is he had pursued his passion. He had done as much with it as he wanted to do. He was ready to
yeah,
move on.
yeah. It could be that. I've often said, I hope one day you read in the newspaper that I died at my office or died at the gym.
I'd be surprised if it said anything else.
Yeah. And my joke to my fellow workout partners is, before you call the ambulance, add 100 pounds to the weight, and tell him he tried that 700-pound deadlift and he just killed him. So I want that to be the narrative, death by deadlift.
Yeah, yours is going to be the funeral where they have to add on 3 more pallbearers because it's so damn heavy with all the extra weights in there.
Yeah, yeah. It's just but that's it. And when I say this, people often mistake it. I clearly love life. I love life. I love getting up. I love what I do. I can't imagine having a better life than I have. I really do mean that.
Mm,
But I also, if I were to, have a heart attack right now and die, well done, job well
mm.
done.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really view it that way. I'm not scared of dying. I'm really not. And I don't want to. But I would, when it does happen, it, we and I talked about my belief system. I don't expect everybody to share it, but something tells me if I die at 5:01 p.m., I'm going to be back here at 5:02 p.m. on some other journey,
Some
some
other
other
journey.
mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Born
And it's
somewhere
not
else.
like I mean, certainly a death like that affects other people. I'm sure it's affecting my friend Anne Marie.
Sure.
I send lots of love and energy and good thoughts her way because she's going through a difficult time for sure.
Yes.
But I also know she also knows he hasn't stopped. He hasn't ended. It's not the end of Mike. He continues. I just continues on a different form. But it does leave a gap in her life because they'd been together. She even counted out how many days they'd been together, which was really
wow,
sweet.
that's really sweet. And that I don't want to appear tone deaf. I was not in any way speaking of his experience, and I believe exactly like you're saying. He transitioned to the non-physical. His energy can't be killed. His transition, the physical body is not here. Yes, and that's what people will miss. That's the physical body, but the spiritual side, the soul, or whatever you want to call that your source energy, your energy returns to source energy is my belief system. You can't, energy doesn't die. And so that's
right.
what happens. It just goes there, and there's debate of what happens at that point. But the idea that somebody's gone, I lost my son TJ. And that was very comforting. It's still very comforting to know that his energy just returned to source energy. I've had a few dreams, or really visions, I think, are even more intense than dreams over the years, where he's verified all that to me, and I know he's safe, and I know his energy's there, and our energies will be reunited at some point. And
he's probably kicking ass at whatever next life he's in right now.
I sure is awesome, and one of the things when I saw him before, he was trying to explain to me, time doesn't matter. He said, I said, well, I want to see you again. He goes, you will, but I go, but I don't want to wait. It doesn't. Time doesn't matter. It doesn't exist in the non-physical. I still don't even really understand what he was trying to say, but it does make sense.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like quantum physics, right? You know that makes sense too, but you can't handle
it. Did you have to mention that, really?
Well, it's an obvious connection. I mean,
let's don't go down that rabbit hole tonight.
And entanglement itself is one of the most fascinating subjects for that exact reason, because everything is entangled, everything's connected, and that's something that's an important thing to bring in. Just because a physical thing, such as a body, disappears, doesn't mean that the entanglement disappears. That's important to maintain.
The entanglement can't disappear. That's
right.
It's entangled. That by definition, it's entangled.
That's what it does.
The energy's entangled. And
there's nothing about entanglement theory that ever talks about strands going away. It's always being added on.
It's entangled. It's just that's so confusing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to give you a headache.
You know how I am about that. It'll get me thinking about it. I won't be able to sleep tonight.
Oh no.
I'm good. But seriously, it's a great topic though. But the overall, being able to identify, the most important thing from my perspective is my mood. I need to identify what mood I am, how I'm feeling. If I need to adjust that mood, I have techniques to do that. I don't want to leave the house in a bad mood. I don't want to go to bed in a bad mood. I need to clear all that stuff. And I spend a lot of time on my mental health and my well-being, and it serves me. It really does. And I try not to get into be around people that are negative. I again, in work, I have to be around who I'm around, but that's separated. But in my personal life, I can easily cut somebody out of my life, and that not to be mean, but just I don't want to be affected by that energy. I don't have to participate in an energy that's not raising my vibration.
I love that you're saying that, especially in light of what I announced to the audience about how Mike McEwen passed on. Mike constantly smiled.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about fake smile. I mean, he was just constantly a happy guy.
I love that.
Now, part of it was that he's married to Anne Marie and they had a wonderful relationship.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But partly it's just him. He was just a happy guy.
Yes.
And not like he didn't have struggles or troubles. He did. He had plenty. It's just that he decided he would rather be happy about it.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that, and that's the way. That's what we need to bring to the table when the world has converted to negativity and fear as a tool to win elections or gain control. Uh, that becomes reality for a lot of people, and people
Yeah.
that are able to smile, people being able to realize my well-being and happiness has nothing to do with elections, or it has to do with me. And
I promise anybody who's looking for happiness in elections, you're looking in the wrong place. You're not
absolutely,
going to find it there.
no, and but being responsible for yourself and being able to uh, identify. I actively work on my mental health every single day,
Mm.
and when I say that, it sounds like it's a chore. It's not. It's what I do. But not leaving the house with the attitude, I have, I got to raise my vibration using my version of the emotional guidance scale that
Mhm.
Abraham Hicks talks about. I don't
Yeah.
use theirs, but I've created my own with the same concept.
Sure.
They have way too many steps.
Yeah, I have 2.
Yeah.
That's all I can handle. So,
Yeah, that's all you
better
need.
or worse, that's all I can really handle.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't need that. We have what, 24 or something? It's like, what?
22 of them, I think, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
it's
Wow.
not 20 too many is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad it works, but I can make, and again, as you become more practiced at the law of attraction, using it to your benefit, I do believe you can make bigger leaps and
Mm.
maybe 22 is a good idea in the beginning because it's more incremental leaps, but I can
Yeah.
leap far more than a spot like that.
Well, I remember the first time I consciously attempted to make a large emotional leap, and I failed miserably, absolutely,
Ah,
completely failed miserably. What I've discovered over time is that without having to work specifically at that, just by, like you say, working on yourself, by working on myself, by taking my own internal temperature and checking how I'm doing and making adjustments and just doing that on and on and on, I have gotten to the point where I can jump longer distances. I haven't gotten to the point where I can go from depressed to joyous. Of course, I'm not sure I really want to try that one, but
that's not good.
yeah, that's not really good. But I mean, if I really needed to right now, I could probably I could certainly get from bored to love. That would be easy.
Yeah,
I'm frustrated to love, maybe. I'm not quite sure I'm strong enough for that yet, but I'd have a shot at it. That's
absolutely.
50-50,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, starting at anger, going from anger to love, that's a big one. That's pretty large. I think I probably want to do that one in steps.
Yeah, anger for me used to be different than it is now. Anger is actually a very effective tool for me right now. I don't stay in it but microseconds. But
Yeah. Okay.
when I identify anger, I quickly can use that as a catalyst.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I can see
yeah,
that.
yeah. Anger is an action emotion in my mind. Depression is not an action emotion at all.
Hmm.
If I can get angry, is way above depression, and then from anger, that's 0.23 seconds I'm in anger, and then I move on.
Okay.
I'm aware of anger as a catalyst, an action emotion, and then I can just use it as a quick pivot. I never stay in anger.
I think you're right. That's pretty much what I do. I didn't really think about it that way,
Yeah.
but I think it is what I do.
Yeah, in fact, when I was talking to a client the other day, he's really depressed, and uh, I was using a technique where I was, basically it's just motivational interviewing, but the questions I was asking him, like he's mad because his parents won't do. He's a grown man, and his parents won't do this for him, don't do that for him, and he wants their help, but he doesn't want their input. And so, I just want them to pay for what I want to pay for, but I don't want to. I said, look, I said, it's their money. You're a grown ass
Mm.
man, and they don't have to give you money. If they have
Mm.
a right to ask you with that, or you don't. And he goes, well, that just sort of pisses me off. And I said, really good. Now we'll go from there
Mm.
to where can we get at that you were depressed, so you've moved up to anger, and believe it or not, he bought into that. It really worked. I said, now
Really?
we're not
Okay.
staying in anger, so let's get motivated. What can you do? You have to make a decision. Your parents are going to help you, yes or no. Then they have a right to an input. If you say no, you're on your own, then go do it. But you don't get to straddle that line where you yell and scream at them while
Mm.
demanding they pay for
Yeah.
something and thinking they don't have a right to ask.
Well, plus he was kind of easy too because you didn't have to resort to what's your favorite Beatle. That makes it a little bit
Yeah,
easier.
that, that, that's more of a younger client technique, but yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, 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 uh,
But yeah, well, sure, I can see that, and it kind of illustrates that really anybody can learn that skill of how to jump that far.
Yes. Yes.
Because you described it very nicely. You don't if you stay there, the longer you stay there, the harder it is.
Well, yeah. The depression to anger is it to me. It's almost it can be a natural progression.
Mm-hmm.
The danger in that is getting stuck in the anger too.
Yeah.
Yeah, anger is all. It has to be a pivotal action.
Right.
It has to be just there as an identifier. Angry, I need to take action. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I use it. So if I find myself in a position for something that's making me angry, I quickly identify the angry and say, okay, stop now. What action can I take to move away from this anger? And I do that instantaneously. And I haven't always, but as I practice this over the years, I find anger as one of the strongest uh, catalysts for me to flip up the emotional guidance scale.
Interesting.
Yeah,
It's very interesting.
yeah.
I kind of already know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's a cool question.
Yeah.
But how do you reconcile the complaint that some people will make that you're just running away from your emotions?
I first I will tell them thank you for your input.
Okay.
I'll give it all the warranted thought that I think it needs. But
So about 1/10 of a second, I get it.
yeah. But no, all kidding aside, I think I am addressing my emotions. I've identified an emotion. I also identify anger as an emotion that is not healthy. It can be a tool. So I am not just moving on from my problems. And I also, and this is another slippery slope, I also think moving on and just your problems exist, and I'm not ignoring the emotion. I just know there's an emotion on the other side. So
Now we got a great point right there. There's an
Yeah.
emotion on the other side. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I know there's another emotion. So the idea that, well, Joel, you're just shadow, whatever term they use, you're ignoring your emotions, you're in denial.
Mhm.
I'm very aware of my emotions, but I also know that there's certain emotions that I need to go to a higher level. I generally operate at a much higher level emotionally. So if something is frustrating things, particularly with Justin, or when you're dealing with a 19-year-old, they're really annoying people. I love him very much, but 19-year-olds in general are pretty annoying.
Let's be honest. When we were 19, we were kind of
I
jackasses.
was super annoying too. So, dealing with, I also know, like, for example, I'll use Justin as an example. If he does something that really irritates me, I never yell or try not to yell. I don't think I do. But I'll immediately go to, I love him. He's my son.
Mhm.
And while this is frustrating and making me angry, me being in an anger state is not going to help him. So what I try to get to is a more of a contemplative state. Say, would you like to talk about it? Is there anything I can do to help you? If I can't, I won't push it. But you can. I have to also tell him all the time. This is a side note, but it'll make sense. Is I explained to him one time. He said, "Dad, I don't need you to life coach me every day." I said, that's a really good point. It really is.
Yeah.
I said, my job is a life coach. So people come talk to me about problems and I get solution based. I'm always solution based.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So, I'm trying to have an agreement with him. So, and I will ask the question, I'm your dad. If you just want to vent, please tell me you're venting, and I will absorb it. Offer sympathy, offer condolences, offer whatever. Or are you looking for solutions? Because my default mechanism is always a solution.
Yeah, that's something I had to develop my own strategy on. For me, the strategy was I wasn't going to life coach anybody unless they asked me.
Right.
So I kind of like did the flip side of what you do. But I can see why you need to do that the way you do it, because you're a life coach. That's part of what you do.
Well,
You kind of
I
have
tell
to.
my friends, I say, look, I'll be glad to. I just need anybody to clarify with me. If you say, I want your opinion on something, I'll be really clear. Do you want my opinion? Or are you just saying that? Because I give that. And then once you give me that, you had an issue, a while back, and we talked about, what took place when you were separated, and then, all that went on there. And a lot of my job at that point was to, first of all, be there as your friend.
Yep.
And then you asked me what can I do? What's some ideas that I can do? And then I told you my ideas. I didn't just
Great
say,
ideas.
yeah, just go, I didn't just get on there with you and just, I listened, heard what you were feeling,
Mhm.
and we offer that. We have to be able to do that. So,
Yeah.
if a friend comes to me, like, yeah, my default mechanism is solutions. I start looking for solutions, and sometimes people just wanted me to listen, and I can do that too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's important to know which it is. I
Yes,
mean, are you asking
particularly
for
about
solution,
friends and
or do you
family.
need somebody to just listen to you?
Yes, yes,
It's
yeah,
it's an interesting skill to develop, to be able to ask for that.
yeah,
Because I don't think most people, male or female, there's this kind of social belief that females are better at tapping into their emotions. But my take on it is that neither males nor females are particularly good at making it clear whether they just want to vent or whether they're looking for help.
right. And that question can also just be a therapeutic tool as well.
Mm,
So when somebody says something, I have this problem with a coworker, and she's really pissing me off. I can say, are you looking to just vent to me, which is fine? Are you looking for solutions on how you can deal with this? And that question alone
it's a great
can
question.
change that direction of thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Just even asking, you don't
Yeah,
even have to follow anything up. That
right.
alone would change it.
Right. And I've had people say, like my friend who at work was not complaining, but well, she was complaining about something. I said, are you looking for a solution, or you just want me to listen? I'll be glad for either one.
Mhm.
And she laughed and she said, I appreciate that. She said, I think I just need to vent. I
Okay.
said,
Good for her. Good
vent
for her.
away. Yeah.
That's a rare quality to be able to
Yeah.
recognize that.
Yeah. And she said, and it does help the vet. And I really appreciate you not trying to fix it for me. And I said, yeah.
Mhm.
And, and she did a great job handling it. And she didn't even need my input.
Yeah.
And that, which I love about that, so a lot of it is just understanding your role. I can't, you know, when you're a parent in particular, you, when a kid's 5 years old, their whole life just revolves around you taking care of everything.
Right.
So it's easy to, when a kid gets to be an adult legally, they're still a child mentally for the most part. And it's a really hard line to walk for them. You can't
Mhm.
make it. People I find it funny. People say, well, his 18-year-old son he was raised terribly because of all stuff he got into. It's hilarious because until you have a kid, you don't realize until they get about 16 or 17, you really can't control them. They're going to do
Mhm.
what they want to do. You can
Yeah.
try to control them, but they're going to do what they're going to do. You can cut off their money, you can take their car away, you can do, but if they want to do something bad enough, they're going to go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a very valuable insight to finally gain.
Yes.
However, you have to gain that.
Yes.
That insight will not only serve you with a 16-year-old, it'll serve you with most of the human race.
Yes.
Because that's one
Complete.
of what's the source of so many of the conflicts that happen. People feeling like they need to control other people for their own happiness.
Well, that's the thing where when you believe that your happiness is built on somebody believing the way you believe,
Right.
you're destined to be unhappy.
Oh,
The art of allowing means, you and I've talked about this thing last week, but the art of allowing is truly allowing other people to be,
yeah.
and being able to not be affected by that. So that's one of the reasons I'm on my Facebook sabbatical is a lot of people get reactive when they're being programmed with all this negative stuff and the world's
Mhm.
falling apart, and if you don't vote for this person, there's going to be pigs eating something, or people, I don't know exactly what's going on, something like that, but or crazy stuff, or somebody's
No, we're not
controlling.
creating fake news here. That was a hypothetical. That's all that was.
Yeah, no, yeah, or the government controlling the weather, or other random things they throw out
Yeah.
there. But at the end of the day, I look at where I'm at. I have the life that I described earlier. I'm going to be fine no matter what.
Mhm.
Do I have a preference of which way this country would go?
Yeah,
I
sure.
do, but I'm going to be fine no matter which way this goes. As I've always been before, there's always been change. I've always adapted. I've always succeeded and thrived. Once I started getting my mindset right, so making other people believing you have to make other people believe the way you believe is one of the quickest ways to unhappiness.
It's
You know
also one of
that
the quickest ways to self-enslavement.
it is, and in Abraham Hicks, she is very clear a couple times. Esther's very clear with most of the time people start off the law of attraction trying to figure out a way to make people do what you
Yeah.
want them to do.
Yes.
And
It's
that's,
amazing how often people try to do that.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I had a client one time that my first client that ever came to me just about the law of attraction. Usually people come to me and I talk about the law of attraction. So this client was, because that's on my website, law of attraction, my belief in it. She said, I want to talk to you about the law of attraction. I said, this is exciting. I like that.
Sure.
Nobody had ever done that just for the law of attraction. And so she comes in and she said, I'm seeing this guy at work who's married, and I want him to divorce his wife and marry me.
I'm sorry.
And I'm like,
you can tell I would not make a good life coach.
yeah. So I'm sitting there going, I said, that doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. And I went and spent the hour. She said, so basically, if I want it bad enough, I said, no, it won't, because you're coming from the wrong side. In fact, if anything, you're going to create more loneliness for yourself, believing that that's what you need to happen.
Yes.
If you want the essence of the relationship, if you put out to the universe, I would like a partner like this, because here's the things I love about this guy. And by the way, he's not married. That's what we're going to be searching for here.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
And she was adamant. She said, nope, I want this specific man.
There's an interesting side to this, and it does kind of tie into our topic, because the topic is not only emotional well-being, it's also basically tying into your own self-care, taking the break, taking the time out, and setting up appropriate boundaries in your own life, because that's what we've been talking about
right
the entire hour. But the one thought that comes to my mind is she was setting herself perfectly for the lesson she needed to learn the most.
Yes.
Now, what she's setting herself up for, I would not want to be a part of.
No,
I would not want to live that life at all. I wouldn't want to have that experience. But she seems bound and determined to have it.
Yeah.
It kind of ties into what you said a moment ago. You literally can't make her do what she wanted to do, which you recognize as a life coach anyway.
Right.
She's going down that path. She's going to end up doing it in some way or another, and she's going to end up paying the price for it.
There'll be a big price to pay. It's not going to pull him closer. She will eventually. I have no idea. That was our only session. It was.
So you don't know what the result was.
Yeah,
sure.
I don't know the result. In fact, she said, "Should we have another session?" I go, "No." I said, "It doesn't matter. What you want is something I can't help you get. You're stuck." And she was very nice. She said, "Well, I'll figure it out." And I go, "I hope you do." And so I don't know.
And I think she will, one way or another. I mean, she may put herself through hell to do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes maybe that's kind of what we do. We put ourselves. It's what I call the 2x4 effect.
Yes.
No matter what it is that we're attracting, good or bad, into our lives, the universe sends multiples of it.
Absolutely.
And each multiple, the first one that we ignore, it gives us the next multiple, ratcheted it up a little bit. And it just keeps ratcheting it up until finally it gets to the point where you're paying no attention at all to the fact that it continues to give you what it is you asked for. That's what I call the 2x4 moment, because that's when you experience the really painful one. You say, whoa, where did that come from?
There's a gentleman I met at the gym, and really nice guy. And him and I'm trying to think of the lady's name. It doesn't matter. So he worked out at the gym every day, and he had a friend from the gym. They were roughly the same age. They become very good friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they worked out together, and I speak and talk to them. And so we were talking about the law of attraction, and he said, "I've heard about what you do. That sounds very fascinating. I've been trying to, attract a partner and all this." And I'm in my mind, I'm looking like, if you looked at the lady that you work out with every day and you always have it, but I didn't want to say that in front of him. I go, well,
yeah.
I said, sometimes it's really obvious and you just aren't seeing it, and he was so oblivious. He goes, "I don't think so." I go, "I'm pretty sure it's pretty obvious that," and then finally one day, she was there by herself and she goes, "I know what you're saying." I go, "About what?" She said, "The other day." I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I've been waiting for him to ask." And I go,
"Wow,
you can't ask?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "I'm sort of scared." And I go, "Okay, well, don't ask." And I said, "He's clueless, so this is never going to happen. Why don't you just try it?" And he's like, "Oh my God, I didn't think about that. They been dating, have a great. It literally was right in front, working out with him
Yep.
every day. This beautiful, intelligent, athletic woman, and they always laughing. It's like you attracted. It was there for months,
Hmm.
and you didn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're good at that. We're
We
very
are.
skilled at having. I forget. Oh, I know what it was. It was the movie The Da Vinci Code.
Yes.
The guy who was the bad guy, the wealthy guy who was bankrolling all the craziness that was going on, makes the point. I think when they're landing in London, he says, "Haven't you ever noticed that people rarely notice what's going on right in front of their faces?"
Yeah. Oh, they're one of my. And this is a little different flavor, but in Washington D.C. subway one time, there's a violinist named Joshua Bell.
Oh
And,
yeah.
yeah, probably the most famous violinist in the world currently.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant.
And so he was playing at whatever big shot place in Washington D.C. And
Probably the Kennedy Center, I would guess.
yeah, and he was. I mean, his tickets were starting at $150 a seat.
Right.
Earlier in the day, he played. He just sat there and played for free, wearing a baseball cap.
You busker in the metro, really?
Yeah, in the subway.
Oh wow.
He collected like $11 of people put money down there. Yeah, this is the most acclaimed. You didn't pick up on. There's people that were in the subway that morning that paid $150 to see him, that
Yeah.
walked right by him,
Yeah.
not recognizing that. So we have a tendency to be not look at what's right in front of us. That we should do a show on that topic alone. That's a great.
I'll pass that along to Jen, who's my VA now.
Yeah, I like that
I'll have her
topic
set that
because
up.
when you really realize that this is I feel a fact. What you're seeking is already there. You just haven't found it. You haven't tuned into it. It's
You
there.
haven't tuned in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there. It's right there. No matter what it is, it's right there. And that's proven true in my life a lot. And it's like, oh yeah, there it is.
We'll make that the topic next week. I'll send Jen a note about that. But
Yeah, that'd be great.
I know you have. This is like the time of day. I know you have some eggs you have to go. So
I have to. I didn't realize it was late. She's going to stay open for me, but I'm running late.
Yeah, we got to get going on that one. So
Okay,
thank you
all
very
right.
much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.